We all know the lot of gaps in the whole startup ecosystem. So we need to highlight. They have identified some 5 pillars. In those 5 pillars, we have to identify the gaps and come up with some kind of policy decisions. We happen to identify one gap is we don't have a definition for startups. In the same context, there are various issues which all of us as ecosystem enablers, we are finding a few difficulties which can be addressed by the policymakers and also the international G20 nations. We can learn from G20 nations. That's the reason why we have Australia representation also here. We need to learn from the business leaders, youth, and also the entrepreneurs and finance part, handled by banks, which what they are looking forward to from startups and technology people like research labs, and I think we need to create an ecosystem. Already we have been doing it, but there are certain issues. We want to be open and come out with our result-oriented recommendations.
But I think the globalization and the freedom for startup to align with national policies and national mandates. I think that is what the prime, purpose of this particular G20 and its predecessor meetings that so far happened. Even today we are sitting for that purpose. In that context, I think last line from my side is that being an incubator, major responsibility is there, not only from the government. Being an incubator, I'm saying that it is our responsibility. Incubators need to take that responsibility, and I'm just telling here in front of all of you that the gaps that what Ramadevi garu trying to anticipate or expect from all of us to discuss and to resolve certain those of gaps. I think we are taking that ownership of those responsibilities to help all the startups to connect the dots. That's what my last line. I think everybody have gone through the 5 pillars or what are the challenges they briefly mentioned, but we have to actually look from the rural sectors to cities, and then to states, and then to national, then to global.
Actually, startup, in my view, is a facility for entrepreneurs to get onto it, get the benefits out of it, what the system offers, and then take off as entrepreneur. Now, the definition has to be given. It should be given for the users, not for only the ecosystem. When a village boy is there, a village girl, a woman is there, how do you understand the definition of startup vis-a-vis present company registrations, MSMEs, so many ecosystems already existing. It's not that we had nothing so far. Now, how do we differentiate between these two, and that particular person in the village be able to understand, yeah, I have a choice of 3, 4, let me look into this, or choose all of them. Now, today there's a confusion. And that has to be taken off because somebody says guidelines, somebody says policy, and there's no mandatory. And in the schools, what she said, that are we making them startups, or are we promoting innovation? What is that we need to do in the school? And startup innovation, in my view, are not totally identical. There's a difference in these two. Yes. Let's focus what is innovation and what is problem solving in the schools, and maybe as they grow, we can think of startups. That's of course a choice of parents and children.
I sincerely believe that startup ecosystem, unless it is developed, we can't reach that goal. And congratulations to ALEAP and CCMB institutions and other incubators for doing that job. All are startup enablers, and we are committed to innovate and deliver and enable the entire startup ecosystem environment. We all already have many SME intensive branches and a huge branch network. But in Hyderabad, we thought that though State Bank of India has already come up with startup branches in centers like Bangalore, in Mumbai Metro, in Chennai, and also in Gurgaon. So this will be the 5th startup branch we will be opening in Hyderabad on 5th of June. In fact, it's already complete. It will be formally inaugurated by our chairman himself. And that branch is committed entirely only for specifically for startups only. So that is our commitment, and we are very thrilled to help and be part of the entire startup ecosystem.
What we see when we talk about agriculture or social inclusion, we are talking, but it is whole ecosystem need to move towards rural areas, but it is still it is lacking. Many of the ecosystem is vibrant in many cities like Hyderabad, Bangalore, and Delhi, but really it need to move towards rural areas. Then there may be the innovation ecosystem, the impact or the benefits we can reap for all the population. That's why maybe coming together this type of different innovation ecosystem players that may be interesting, because our competencies or resources we can share so that we can create much more impact than what we are now creating.
So the bank HDFC as a startup journey started way back in the 2016, right when the government of India announced Startup India initiatives. That's when we realized as a bank we need to have a separate and focused vertical for startups. That's where we have formed our own division. Now since last 6 years, right, we are very active in the space. We started long back we started identifying the ecosystem partners, right, especially the incubation centers. Right, in last 4 years, we worked with more than 80 incubation centers. We supported them with the various knowledge sharing sessions, and then we started supporting them even with the CSR grants. So that's where even the ALEAP, last year we signed an MOU with ALEAP. That's where we promised we will get something as a CSR grant, and we have delivered that this year with 50 lakh as a one-time grant. Right, even the CCMB is right here. Even for them we supported with 35 lakhs this year. Right, so as a bank we kind of have a very good share. Right, so we out of the DPIIT registered startups, we say 70,000-80,000, 30,000-35,000 already banked with us. Right, the vision of the bank was very clear. We have our own branches. Right? Across India now we have reached 25 startup or specific branches.
Till date, CIDBI has invested almost 8,600 crore in startups. It does financing by an indirect manner. It invests in alternate investment funds registered with SEBI. So it is not direct, though not directly assisting startups, but it assists the startups through alternate investment funds.
Collectively, the group of 20 nations represent a startup ecosystem that has more than 850,000 startups, more than 1,600 unicorns, more than 20,000 incubators. At the highest level, Startup20 has two overarching objectives that must be achieved simultaneously. First, to harmonize the global startup ecosystems in order to facilitate collaboration across these ecosystems. But second, to do so while preserving the freedom of national ecosystems to develop and grow as they desire simultaneously. The group expects to produce the following outputs. First, the main deliverable of this group is the policy communique to be submitted to the world leaders. There are 4 other deliverables that will be produced in the process of producing the communique. First, a startup definition framework and terminology handbook. Second, a startup financing framework for financing across G20 nations. Third, mechanisms to accelerate startup.
But a couple of things that I have noticed, the similarities that are there between Australia, for example, and India. And Dr. Rama pointed that out earlier when she said, the quality of the startups. So that pipeline of startups, and it starts with getting the youth interested and the students and the people from their 10th grade or their early university years. Then you get them interested in the startup opportunity, and that's where it starts. Still, I'm sure maybe we have again similarities with India. In Australia, it is like startup is not considered as a viable career option by the students, the parents. So infusing that enthusiasm in the youth is very important.
What we consider as startup in 2018-19 versus what the startup definition has been changed now, which is annual turnover up to 100 crores and not more than 10 years old. So somewhere when we say that we have to come up with a defined definition of startup across G20s, there are two challenges. So one challenge is every country's economy is different. Every company's the stake that the industry has, and whether it should be considered and pampered as a startup or should be considered an industry may change. So what we can have is we can have uniformity on defining criteria. However, the limit or the range of those criteria can be different in different economies. That is very possible. Secondly, also we have to like when we say the startup definition says turnover limitation up to 100 CR or registration to 10 years you can call startup. Why there are particular funding schemes or incentives which have different criteria, like not more than 2 years old or not more than 1 CR revenue or turnover. So if we can define them and revise the startup definition, it will be one definition, and with this definition you will get all the incentives.
It's very true. We don't have a compulsory mechanism in our policy as far as the education institutions is concerned. So we have a guideline saying that you have to promote innovations in the school and college level. But what happens is it matters to a paper publication, or it matters to a kind of bringing into the PR exercise kind of thing for the education institution. So now the imposition of credits to the curriculum that may impose in students, because the students, it's not the mistake of the students it's not the mistake of younger generation. It's the system that makes that as it is not compulsory, the focus is very low. If it gets a credit course, either in the up to 12th standard or in the kind of graduation level, that picks up. And also we are very low in, as sir said rightly from Palestine, we are failing to scale the grassroots innovations. That's major impact. We are not even bringing it into light to our own children's life at home, because there is something has happened in the grassroots that is making the life easier in the grassroots level. Even inculcating the entrepreneurial spirits at the students, and also academic institutions, there should be a compulsory credit system should be involved in the national education policy.
Startup definition. What I would like to add is that when we say startups, we are actually alienating 99% of the new businesses that are registering every year. 99.5 I would say. Why? Because most of the businesses that are registering are B2 businesses. Somebody's doing manufacturing a generalistic thing, doing a service that is already there in the market. But I feel that these are the ones who are going to be revenue positive maybe within the first 1 year or 2 years. How can we include them in the definition of the startup is something that we should think about, because it doesn't 99.5% businesses are going to be these kind of things where there is like literally no innovation, right? But they are the ones who are actually generating the revenue. They are the ones who are actually generating the employment. So we as incubators, we normally whenever we see these kind of businesses, we just say that we're going to come inside the door. So this is something that needs to change, and we need to embrace these people as well, because these are the ones who are actually doing a lot of good work.
I believe when we do investor connects or investor programs, we feel there is also a lack of mentoring which is required for every startup. While I know funding is a very important aspect, but whether the startup is investor ready. So I think 3.1 that we're talking about can be in complementary or rather 3.4 can be in complementary to 3.1 because mentoring or awareness is equally important where we talk about raising investments. So I think that needs to be clubbed rather than having a separate format.
There are a lot of aspects of inclusivity that we have to look at more micro level also. Of course, this is on macro level as a G20 level, but it helps. I mean, we are quite an advanced society as far as startup and entrepreneurship goes. Among the G20, also there will be hardly one of the countries ahead of us. So a lot may depend upon us itself to, as India, to take the leadership in establishing ecosystems in these other countries. If we can take it forward to that level, and G20 is only for 1 year, the presidency changes. I don't know what happens to all this after that, and how sustainability of this is going to be put into a proper workable framework.